We are all familiar with vaccines. These are the painful injections we get growing up that stop our body from becoming sick with the disease. In general, vaccines that we have used all throughout our history work by training our immune system to recognize infectious agents, whether this be a weakened version of the virus or something like a protein that the virus makes. Our body then uses its natural defense mechanisms to recognize and react to this piece of foreign material to keep us safe before we encounter the real thing. Using these principles, a new type of vaccine actually uses our own cellular machinery to give us protection against these diseases. This type of vaccine is called an mRNA vaccine, and it is the one that Moderna and Pfizer created to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. Before we dive deep into the biology of these vaccines, let's first get a brief overview on what exactly is mRNA. This is a small piece of genetic information that gets made from our DNA in our cells to make proteins that we need for daily functions. However, instead of making a protein for our own body to use, this piece of mRNA in a vaccine actually codes for a protein recognized in the virus. Our immune system can see this virus protein and recognize this as a foreign agent to learn what to look for when the real thing shows up. Now, what is the protein that the mRNA vaccines are coding for in the coronavirus? Let's look at the virus itself to really understand. So when we look at the coronavirus, it's a piece of genetic material sealed up in an envelope of proteins, one of them being the spike proteins coating the outside of these viruses. These little spikes actually bind to our cellular membrane to invade them. Because of their hijacking potential, our immune system is very sensitive to these proteins, making them the perfect candidate for an mRNA vaccine. So what scientists do to make the vaccine is that they stick the mRNA that codes for the spike protein into a lipid coat, which is basically a fat bubble that allows them to easily cross our own cell membrane. After it gets past our cellular membrane, it then releases this piece of mRNA into the cytoplasm. You know, the liquid stuff that's in our cells. This mRNA then goes to our normal cellular machinery called the ribosome, which basically is the protein maker of our cells. After it arrives, it instructs the ribosome to make a bunch of the spike proteins that usually are on the whole coronavirus. After it makes these spike proteins, the mRNA instructions are broken down and disposed of in our cells, just like any other piece of mRNA that we make inside our cells. Now all that's left is these spike proteins, which gets displayed on the surface of our own cells. This allows our immune cells to recognize it as foreign object to prepare itself for the real virus. We build up an immunity wall and are protected from COVID-19. Now, mRNA vaccines may seem like new and scary biotechnology, but they actually have been studied by scientists for over 2 decades. You may also be concerned that mRNA can interact with our own DNA. Even though this is an understandable worry, human cells know exactly how to handle mRNA because we use it all the time in our own body. They are able to break down the mRNA as soon as it is finished using these instructions. Finally, because the mRNA is the only coding a tiny piece of the entire virus, there's no way you can get COVID-19 from this vaccine. So now the question is, why should you get this type of COVID-19 vaccine? Well, first, in an article written by Dr. Tenford published in 2021, they describe how vaccinated individuals have a low risk of hospitalization from the virus. Instead of getting the horrific COVID-19 infection, they only get mild symptoms. These vaccines are not only safe, but are also extremely effective. According to an article written by the CDC and published in 2021, Moderna is 94% effective and Pfizer is 95% effective at preventing the COVID-19 infection. By getting vaccinated, you are not only protecting yourself from COVID-19, you are protecting your entire community. The collective response from citizens collaborating with the government's efforts will leave hospital beds empty to those who need it most. By using this incredible vaccine technology that science has given us, let's save lives and save our community.